What is up guys, Andy Forest Team Runner here, and today I'm bringing you guys my first impressions of the New Balance Fuel Cell TC. Eight miles done and dusted in the New Balance Fuel Cell TC. Today I'm going to be giving you guys my first impressions on this very exciting shoe. This shoe had my name written all over it when the details were originally released. Something for the long haul, something for the long run, something that could take you the distance, and I could not wait to get my hands on it when it was finally released. And it has literally sold out within 24 hours. So I'm very lucky to get my hands on a pair and give you guys my thoughts today. So if you're excited for today's video guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends. Of course, consider subscribing to the channel for weekly running content, and without further ado, we'll start with the technical. So before I give you the juicy details as to how this thing felt on the run, let's, as I said, go through the technical side of it. Now I did go onto the New Balance website and try and find out what the heel to toe drop is, the stack height. I couldn't find it on there, but Believe in the Run seem to have it on their website that it's 30mm in the heel and 20mm in the forefoot, meaning we have a 10mm heel to toe drop. And for me, it ran true to size. I'm a UK size 13. I have to get a 13.5 in New Balance and Hoka and other shoes that only do half sizes from my size up, but it fitted absolutely perfectly. And in my UK size 13, it was indeed 11.5 ounces, which is 326 grams. I did think it'd be a little bit lighter, but nonetheless, it felt light on foot. So that's the weight, the fit, the stack height done. Let's work from the heel all the way down the shoe to the upper, to the midsole, and to the outsole. And I'll go through this as best as I can. So we've got this one-piece mesh upper that goes all the way around, but we have a bit of more rigidity in the heel area, and around the top of the heel area, which goes around here, we've got kind of what I would call capping the top off, is this suede material to give it a more premium and plush feel, which is fine. It fits great. Fits nice and snug around the heel and ankle collar area. If you've run in the Fuel Cell Propel like myself, and don't please ask me to compare it to the Rebel, because I have not run in the Rebel, but if you've run in the Propel, you'll know that my one gripe with the Propel is that I've kind of got a little bit of ankle rubbing when I was walking in the shoe. However, when I started running, it went away. You do not get this in this shoe. It is very much like the Propel on steroids, a heck of a lot better. So that fits really nicely, nice and plush around the top here in the TC version. Be interesting to see how the RC version sheds some weight. If we lose some of this plushness, we'll see. But other than that, as I said, the one-piece mesh upper goes all the way around, and that fits nicely. We move on to the tongue. It's a very paper-thin tongue here. There's no padding in it whatsoever. Very reminiscent of some of the Nike tongues that I have run in. And the suede effect goes all the way down the eye row chain here. Now, this is one of my first gripes. We're going to come onto it shortly when I go through my pros and cons, so I'm not going to go into it now. But it does look nice. It looks nice. The laces are a little bit short in my size. I thought today on the run I would like to use the extra eye hole. Laces aren't going to be long enough for me to do that, so I might have to replace the laces, but other than that, we'll come to that shortly. So as I said, that suede effect runs all the way down around the eye row chain and back up and around the heel, but the laces themselves are great. They're fine, they're not elasticy, so they grip nicely, and they get a nice feel on the top of your foot, nothing cutting in, which is good because the upper, if we move on to that, is very thin, and sometimes with thin uppers, if you do the laces too tight, they can indeed cut in. Didn't get any of that, which was great. The tongue is not gusseted, by the way, so it is just a loose, flappy, paper-thin tongue. Anyway, we'll move on to the mesh upper, synthetic mesh upper. Lovely, nice and breathable. I totally get it. They state on their website it is meant to keep your feet nice and cool. I can see how it would do. Temperatures were very mediocre today, spring 10, 12 degrees, but my feet did feel nice and cool. Very nice upper. Got to give it to the upper. It's very nice with the New Balance dot printed logo on here. And other than that, if I look straight through, I can see straight through. I can see light coming through the upper material, which means it is nice and light, and they've certainly saved some weight there. And then we move on to the piece de resistance. You guys know how much I love my FUELCELL Propel. The FUELCELL midsole in this thing is beautiful. I absolutely love FUELCELL midsole, and for me it was possibly midsole of the year last year. Like, technology wise, it's just such a great midsole, and we've got a lot of it here running full length. And within the midsole, to keep it nice and steady, one of the pros, which we'll talk about in a second, we have a full length carbon plate. Now, for those of you that know, no, actually, we'll cover that. We'll cover that in the pros and cons. So we've got the FUELCELL midsole going full length with the carbon plate in there, and then on the outsole, very reminiscent of the Rebel, as again, I didn't run in it, but we've got that same pattern that I believe had on the Rebel. This is just some outsole rubber here, hard wearing, and we've got a couple of little strips here, and the rest is exposed FUELCELL midsole. So that, guys, is the shoe from a technical perspective. So let's move on to the juicy bits. How did this thing fare on the run? Well, there's a couple of things I want to go through, but just before we get into that, let me just make it very clear. For those of you who are new to the channel, this is simply my first impressions. I love to test my shoes thoroughly, and I will be producing a speed test and a long run test video on this shoe combined. So I like to give my first impressions and then take a shoe out on a good long run, take it out on a good speed workout, and give you my overall thoughts on where I think I'm going to be using it moving forward. So stay tuned for that, and as I said, make sure you're subscribed not to miss that video, because I am super excited to put more miles into this thing. So there's a couple of things I want to highlight with this shoe. Overall, it's an absolutely, it's a dreamboat of a shoe, but it's not without its flaws, and I'm going to tell you those now before I get into how incredible it is, because they're not massive, but they are things to bear in mind. Number one, the FUELCELL midsole is stunning. The carbon plate in there just makes it an absolute dream when you're picking up the pace. But point one, it feels a little bit sloppy when you're running slow. It does feel a little bit strange, and it also feels not like the Zoomfly 3, but it does just gently feel a little bit front end heavy. Now, I don't know if that's the extra rubber in the front and not at the back, and I don't know if it's the way the curvature of the carbon plate, excuse me, but it is something to bear in mind, and it did take me a couple of miles to get used to. Once I picked up the pace in the second half of the run, didn't even notice it, but when I was out there running easier, shall we say, it was just niggling in the back of my mind. I was thinking, that's a little bit odd, that doesn't feel right. So if I would rate it after my first impressions, just to give you guys a bit of perspective, I'd say 6 to 7 out of 10 on the easier paces, but 100% 9 out of 10 when you are motoring. It just comes into its own, and then it's smooth. In the beginning though, I was a little bit worried. I'm not going to lie, but that's number one. And the second point is I struggled to get a good lockdown on the upper. The laces are great, the upper itself is great, but I just could not get the whole thing cinched down and tight enough. The laces are quite short as they are, so that did mean that if you saw and were paying attention in the slow motion clips and not looking at my dodgy haircut, you would know and see that as my feet were landing, my ankles were rocking in a little bit, and that's because I had so much movement in the ankle area. This is comfy, but it just wasn't tight enough around the ankle area and the lockdown. And so what I would normally do to combat that is use the extra eyelet hole there. Laces aren't long enough. They're not going to be long enough for me to double knot them, because that's how I like to have my laces done, double knotted, not single knotted. They always come undone if I do that. So I might have to look at some extra long laces. I don't know yet. I love the laces, they're great, but they're just not long enough. So we're going to have to see how that goes, and stay tuned for the next video to see if I can get a better fit on that. Overall though, those are my only two niggles. Just a little bit front heavy, just a little bit loose up here and around here. But on the whole, after a couple of miles, when I picked up the pace, It was everything I wanted this shoe to be. It is going to be an absolute dreamboat of a marathon training shoe. When I get to those long run workouts, when I get to those long runs, and we'll find out this weekend how it does in the long run, it's going to absolutely come into its own. I intend on doing a steady long run at this weekend, which means it's going to be in and around the late 6-minute mile pace to low 7-minute mile pace, depending on how I feel. That's the goal that I'm going to try and hit at, and we'll see how long we can go for in the shoe, how long we have, and give this a good run out, because I think that's a good test. I'm not going to be able to run easy and give you guys good feedback in this. This needs to be put through its paces. And then next week we'll do a speed workout in it and I'll give you my overall thoughts. So that's kind of it for how it went. Overall, I'm really happy with the shoe. High price point. New Balance currently have a 15% discount on. If you go out hunting for a code, you'll find it. So I did get this thing quite a bit cheaper than its £180 retail price. 153 I think I got it for. So overall, pretty decent. Is it worth the money? We'll find out in due course. All I'm going to say is I'm definitely 100% investing in the RC version when it comes out later in the year to give you guys a better comparison. So that's it for today, guys. Have you run in this shoe? Have you got it? It's sold out within 24 hours in the UK, so sadly only a small amount of us managed to get our hands on it. I was thankfully hot on the trigger of the add to cart button when Tom, I think, commented on one of my videos, so thank you, mate. I really appreciate the heads up. It was absolutely great. Delighted that I've managed to get myself a pair already. So as I said, if you've run it, let me know in the comments below what you think of this shoe and if you intend on getting it. And yeah, I just can't wait for the next video on it, to be honest with you. It's going to be a cracker. So that's it for today, guys. Make sure you give this video a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Until then.